A Saskatoon company has modified a new hog-line violation system. Startco Engineering of Saskatoon has perfected a device that will detect whether a hand is touching the handle of the rock when it clears the hog line. 4 years ago, the University of Saskatchewan started this project, but Startco has taken it to a new level.
We started with the project. We had all the electronics in the ice, and we had a magnet in the rock. And so the electronics in the ice sense the magnet in the rock as the rock crossed the magnet. Of course, the electronics is placed near the hog line, just like the magnet is now. And they have reversed that. They've put the electronics in the rock and the magnet in the ice, and that's a huge improvement. There's no more wires coming out of the ice, no more power supply having to go into the ice, so that really made a big difference.
It looks like a simple system. A green light indicates a clean release. Red is a violation.
So we placed a magnetic strip in the ice that's much like a fridge magnet. You have to stretch it right across in front of the hog line. And we have a magnetic sensor in the bottom of the rock, so it can detect when, in fact, it has gone over the hog line. And if you see the handles out here, they've got nickel plating on them. We have an electronic circuit that is hooked up to that, so we can tell when the hand is touching the handle.
Kevin Waugh, TSN, Saskatoon.
Saskatchewan will be well represented on the ice at next week's World Curling Championships, represented not by any players, but by a piece of technology that comes courtesy of a Saskatchewan company. Glenn Reed explains.
This was the third one of that game.
It was a mistake by an official that led to Randy Ferbey's defeat at the World Championships 2 years ago. Ferbey was called for a hog-line violation when a curler does not release the rock by a certain point. TV replays clearly show he didn't commit the foul, but there are no video reviews in curling, and Canada would lose that semi-final game to Switzerland.
It's frustrating that that had a bearing on the game. You know, I ended up making a half-decent shot in the seventh end, and to be pulled, it just sort of reconfirms what I thought, that I didn't go over the hog line that time. And but you know, there's nothing we can do about it at this point in time. We got to accept it.
But this year, Ferbey could have technology on his side.
It takes the politics completely out of the judgment.
It's called Eye on the Hog, a hog line detection device created by a company in Saskatoon. It'll be tested on one sheet of ice at the upcoming World Championships in Winnipeg.
Now, if I was to hold my hand on that and slide it across this magnetic strip that we've got here, it would give me the red indication, the same as for a violation. If I don't have my hand on it and I just slide it across, get the green, a solid green indication. And that will stay on for about 2 seconds. Now, if I wake it up and do the same thing, but touch my hand on it, as it goes over, again, you can verify that it's working. If you slide it across, it gives you a flashing red, and it'll stay flashing for about 10 seconds.
The system has been in place at a Saskatoon curling club for several weeks. Now it's ready for the big test, with the best curlers in the world as its judges.
I'm certain that when they see the way that the system performs, I think it'll become the standard.
But even Randy Ferbey has reservations about taking the human factor out of the sport.
I think you better be careful what we wish for, because I think there could be a lot more infractions than people realize, and it could take the continuity of the game out. It might slow the game down if more people are going over the hog line than they really assume. But I think it's a good idea to test it and see how it works.
If the system gets thumbs up in Winnipeg, a full test could happen at next year's Canadian Brier. Glenn Reed, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And of course, it makes sense for cutting-edge technology on curling to come from Saskatchewan.
You better believe
this is where it happens.
That's
so
right.
It's great to see. It tells us tournament officials have had a change of heart.
If these rocks could talk, they'd tell quite a story.
We're quite disappointed. I'm disappointed. It's been many years of hard work.
It's been an issue in curling for some time. Hog-line referees. They have to determine whether a curler has released the rock before the hog line. Officials have to make the call from opposite sides of the ice, and mistakes are being made.
The human element of the hog line judging is just too scary.
2 years ago, a hog line call cost Canada the World Championship. TV replays clearly showed they didn't commit the foul. Earlier this week, Tim Lee unveiled new hardware that could put an end to the issue. He works for a company that's developed a system that flashes red when there's a hog-line violation. It's been tested in Saskatchewan, and the Canadian Curling Association likes the product.
Well, what I like is that it takes the human component out of the hog-line officiating.
The Canadian Curling Association was planning to test the system at these World Championships. In fact, it was even installed. But yesterday, the head of World Curling said,
"No, I've just stopped that."
You have?
Yes. When I came in, I found it had all been set up, so I told them to stop. Because this is not a test bed for anything. This is a World Championship.
So today, the possible solution to a contentious issue was put away in boxes for another day.
Curling is a sport rich in history and tradition, and sometimes history and tradition have to be overcome, and sometimes that takes more time than some of us want.
Mike Beauregard, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And they'll bring out those rocks from those boxes next year, because that's when the Canadian Curling Association says it plans to test the hog-line system, and it will happen at the Canadian Championships.
We're back in the BC Interior Kamloops for the second edition of the Canada Cup of Curling here at Sportmart Place. And there's the line score right now, 6-2 for Randy Ferbey's team over John Morris after 5 ends of play. A big 3, great shot by Dave Nettowen in that 5th end to break it open here. 6-2 Ferbey over Morris after 5 ends of play. Well, this was a familiar sight in championship curling. This is the official's position at the hog line, sort of like the umpire's chair hanging over center court at a tennis match. But no one sits here anymore. That's because of a Canadian innovation which makes even the closest of calls at the line. There's something in the rocks, and it's starting to make a difference. Beautifully simple. To activate an electronic system, you merely dust the stone. Circuitry in the handle neatly hidden makes it possible for the rock delivered to be detected by a magnetic strip on the ice if it's not released in time. Green light is go. Red light means an infraction. It's all a part of curling coming of age.
CCA began to investigate methods of determining hogline violations about 3 years ago. Began to take a look at how we could objectively analyze rock release at the hogline, because it was at that point pretty much the only subjective rule that we had left in our rule book. The release motion is fairly quick. The human eye is only capable of analyzing so much, and there were problems, obviously.
Canadian curling fans know of a recent hogline controversy, the World Championship semi-final in Lausanne. Randy Ferbey, a close call that may have ended his hopes.
Well, actually, there was about 3 questionable hogline calls in the semi-final in the Worlds in Switzerland, against Switzerland, and you know, probably it's the most harshest penalty in all of curling is a hogline call, or it can be, and that game it definitely did affect us. You know, anytime you got a human element involved in judging the hoglines, there's a problem.
The people who run curling hope the new technology allows for fair play, as well as competitors who will push the limits.
It eliminates any confusion. It eliminates any opportunity for mistakes. It's the old justice is blind kind of thing. You know, it's if you're over, you're over, and if you're close, but you're not over.
It's all very new in a game so steeped in tradition. But even for an advocate of etiquette like Saskatoon's Rick Folk, it makes sense.
You know, my contention was always he shouldn't be that close to the line anyhow if there's any doubt. So now I think guys will have to learn to definitely release the rock earlier, get rid of any kind of doubt. It takes away one, I would say, unpleasant factor about curling over the years has always been did he or didn't he foul, and now there should be no doubt, and it won't be up to the other team or some poor official who's been sitting there for 2 or 3 hours. So I think it's great.
Men's championship curling has seen various interest groups in recent times. But when it comes to crossing the line, everyone agrees there has to be a limit.
It just confirms what we already believe in, that curlers generally do not go over the hog line. And if they do, they're going to be caught here.
By the way, the red light has come on only once here at the Canada Cup. That was in the first draw, women's play, and so the hog-line violation, the electronic one, seems to be working. By the way, another piece of information, at the Continental Cup in Thunder Bay, Ontario, it met with such approval that the World Curling Federation has ordered 160 units from the Canadian manufacturer. Another example of how Canadians are leading the way in the sport of curling.
With the Briar in Saskatoon, a local company is getting a lot of attention for an innovative and virtually foolproof way of detecting hogline infractions. Once again, here's John Sexsmith.
In the delivery of a stone, the stone shall be clearly released from the hand before the stone reaches the forward hog line. Although the rule was seemingly written in stone, it was, however, up for interpretation. Just ask Randy Ferbey.
Well, you know, anytime you bring a human element into deciding a very touchy thing like that, there's always going to be a chance that they're wrong.
But there's no questioning the hog-line violation detection system, a concept that was created by a company in Saskatoon, Startco Engineering Limited.
An engineering professor at the University of Saskatchewan, he came up with the idea, and we ended up redesigning the whole system from the original idea.
Eye on the Hog took about a year to develop and about another year to test. The device is pure genius, and Startco has perfected its product from every possible angle. A magnetic strip is frozen in the ice near the hog line. The system is activated when a rock is lifted for cleaning, and a sensor in the handle of the rock knows when a curler's hand is touching or not.
The lights flash very quickly to indicate that the system is working, and if you touch it, the lights go out.
Circuitry in the handle flashes green lights when the rock is released before the hog line. Red lights flash when a violation has occurred. Joe Potter is a supervising official with the Canadian Curling Association.
It's great for us. It's great for the players. We just love it. This is a consistent application. It sees the same thing game after game after game.
The Eye on the Hog detection system sells for about $650 a handle. And the battery, which costs $60 to replace, has a lifetime of over 200 games or a curling season.
It's 100% foolproof, and I'm all for it. You know, it takes the guesswork out of it, it takes the human element of it. The bottom line is you go over now, you're over, and there's no second guessing whatsoever.
It's just made our life so much easier.
And the hog-line violation detection system will be put in use next month at the World Championships in Sweden. At the Briar in Saskatoon, John Sexsmith, Global Sports.